Hello, Damien. I'm speaking to a squirrel. I didn't
You
realise.
are. Yes. Yeah, my daughter uses Zoom. It's probably the quickest way of explaining that. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm very good, Damien. Thank you. I've just finished your book this morning, actually. How are you, by the way?
Yeah, great. Yeah, just glancing at. You're probably having similar weather. We're having crazy weather again today. It's only 1 minute and just starting to tip it down again out the window. But yeah, really good.
Can you explain the
Um,
traffic cones?
just big ones. Yeah, I just can't let go of my student life. All the traffic cones, big pile of them in the corner.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of students in Bath, I've been told.
But I like to steal the traffic cones so that they can't. That's my game.
So there's currently long traffic jams stretching through Bath and Bristol, and it's all down to you.
Yep, yep. Don't tell anyone.
So now, Damien, I've been behaving slightly out of character recently. I've been getting up in the middle of the night like a badger and sort of sitting downstairs in the darkened kitchen. And the reason for it is I've been reading your book, which is In It for the Long Run, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, by the way. My partner greets me in the morning with, "You've been reading that book again, haven't you?" Don't let this kickstart a midlife crisis. To which I say, well, I've already had my midlife crisis. I hope I've had it about 5 to 10 years ago. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the book. But I'll talk about that in a bit, Damien. But I just wanted to say, obviously, I have to start off by talking about the Pennine Way record.
Do we have to?
I know you're not the sort of character who's going to dwell on the negative. So I'm pretty sure you found a positive. I've already seen some of your posts about drinking tea. What kind of tea were you drinking, by the way?
Oh, my favourite is Clipper tea. Partly because, quite a lot of tea has tea bags anyway, has plastic in it, and quite a few of them are also bleached. If you get really white tea bags, they've usually been bleached as well, which doesn't sound ideal. So one of the few brands who do neither are Clipper, and luckily they taste very fine as well.
Clipper tea.
Yeah, Clipper, they're my favourite.
Okay.
I mean, down the years, I have liked Twinings and Yorkshire tea quite a lot, but Clipper are my current favourite. What about yours?
My favourite tea? I would have said Yorkshire tea. I went for a phase where I was living in Kenya as a teenager, and I got really into the whole tea leaf thing, with a strainer. Because I didn't have any furniture in my student digs, I'd invite friends round, and it would take me literally an hour to make a cup of tea. And they thought it was a bit eccentric, but I've sort of grown out of that now. And I lived in Spain for a while, and I went for a phase of drinking horny man tea, which is slightly strange label. I don't know if that translates as anything in Spanish. Yeah, that's the oddest named tea I've ever had. I don't like too much choice. It throws me if I have too much choice in the morning when all I can think about is reaching for the coffee and the milk. Because I'm really a coffee man.
Oh,
yeah. Is that bad?
yeah. Well, you didn't make that clear before I agreed to this interview. I mean, it's not that I hold it personally against you, but tea is best.
I promise to move on from this topic in a minute, but I have to say, I have to ask you, do you ever drink coffee?
No, I don't like it. It's it's just too bitter or too strong. I suppose I see it like like alcohol. The first time you have alcohol, and most people think, oh, yuck, but you kind of force yourself to drink more until you like it. I don't know. I don't know if that's really true, but I've never forced myself to drink more coffee because I like tea too much.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
You know what you like? I must admit, I feel a bit like that towards flowered teas, scented teas, a little bit peppermint tea as well.
Yeah, I do think chamomile's overrated, but I like a mint tea. A mint tea is nice.
Yes.
But not in the morning you need proper tea.
Okay, now it's a nice little diversion away from the Pennine Way, Damien. I see what you did there.
Oh, damn.
But I'm going to take you back, not to dwell on the negative, but just to talk about really what a fantastic jewel. It sort of reminds me of the Ovett Coat era, but for ultra running with you and John Kelly. I remember as a schoolboy walking to school, and all we could talk about was Co getting the record back off Ovett and vice versa. And with my middle-aged friends, and that's kind of what we're talking about at the moment. In fact, we've been pinging emails back and forth this morning about it. I don't know if you know, but you're still down as the Southwest Coast Path record holder on the Southwest Coast Path website.
Do we have to bring that up as well? Oh,
sorry.
I didn't know that. Well, I'm in no rush to tell them. Maybe the new record holder there should get in touch with them. I've this last year or so of record breaking's been fantastic, and I've enjoyed it, and I've set 3 new records myself. But I've lost 3 now as well. So it's ups and downs, live by the sword, and all of that. I'll get over it.
Live by the sword. It's in its nature sort of perishable good, isn't it? An FKT.
Yeah, and I think John Kelly said himself, like, records are kind of not only valid if they're challenged, but the more they're challenged, the more of a credible record it is. I mean, a lot nowadays, like, almost anyone can go and create or set a record, which is brilliant. But really, the records that excite people are the ones that most people go for, I suppose. And that means if you have it, you might not have it for very long.
Yeah, well, anyway, it's sort of by the by in a lot of our books, because what it's done is it's generated a real interest, possibly outside the slightly geeky niche world of ultra running, I would say. Although, because I'm sort of got one foot in that camp, it's quite hard to know if my bubble is the same as the parallel bubble, or it's all one big giant bubble now. I don't know.
Well, I did feel, last July, when both me and John Kelly ran the Pennine Way, within 2 weeks of each other. We were on BBC TV a few mornings later. That definitely felt like we'd jumped outside the bubble, and then it ended up being reported in the Guardian, Financial Times more recently. I had a Daily Mail journalist on the phone to me. For that brief time, and remember, this was also handily. It was sort of the end of lockdown when professional sport hadn't really returned yet, if I remember it rightly. So you almost had all these sports pages that needed sports stories,
yeah.
And it was also a fairly optimistic story at the time. Records being broken, people getting out there doing extraordinary things. Like it just fitted the time as well a bit. For a moment, I feel like it did burst out of that bubble. Although, it is tricky for me to know exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been films made now showing at festivals in which yourself and John Kelly feature, and I'm sure there'll be others in the pipeline as well. I know you don't want me to ask you this, so I'm not going to ask you directly. I'm going to ask you in a sort of, if you ever watched All the President's Men, where they're trying to get information about Watergate, and Bernstein needs to ask an awkward question, and so to one of the Republicans. And so rather than his interviewee saying a direct answer as such, he just goes silent, or maybe he just says no. So you could say no. So here's the question. Your next effort at FKT, is it going to be the Wainwright Coast to Coast?
When does this come out?
Oh, by the time I've edited it, it'll probably be 2 weeks' time.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yes, it is. I'm starting next Tuesday.
Yes.
Tuesday, as in not even next Tuesday. The Tuesday coming. Yes. Did you have a tip off or did you guess?
Well, Strava. There's no secrets on Strava, Damon. You know that.
No, I didn't mind. Yeah, no. If I really wanted to keep it secret, of course, I wouldn't have put it on there like I did. I did keep it off the Pennine Way for the Pennine Way last year, but yeah, I'm gonna give that a bash. The record has stood for 30 years, and it's a Mike Hartley record. So he probably thinks I've got it in for him. But he's yeah. I'm actually. Well, I suppose I won't waffle about it too much because by the time people listen to this, they'll know whether I've been successful or not. But it's actually quite a lot faster record than the Pennine Way. So it's good. It's a good record. Although the distance isn't as big, the speed is higher, and that's more intimidating to me actually because I'm less intimidated by distance and more so by speed. So yeah. Pretty it's going to be challenging.
Yeah, and presumably you've got your crew all lined up. They've had to keep it to themselves, have they?
Yes, they're pretty much ready. They're ordering vegan pizzas, I think, as we speak, and so on. So yeah, I feel very lucky and blessed. So many people are very happy to help. It's nice actually. It is very similar to last year in that we're just coming out of a big lockdown where we haven't been seeing friends really. And it's lovely to sort of do something. There are some races on now, but not, most of us haven't done a race. It's lovely to do something, as a team, to see friends and do that, actually. So it's it fits nicely with coming out of lockdown.
You've got to go back quite a few years to go back to Mike Hartley. You go back to what, late 1980s, early 1990s?
1991 is when he set the Coast to Coast,
Yeah.
Which was a few years. I spoke to him on the phone recently. He said he said he was in his prime, and that was not his best record, but he said that was his most consistently paced record, and that was after he'd done sort of the Pennine Way and the Southern Upland Way and the 3 consecutive rounds. So he was in, it was a year after those things. So he was in great shape, and it seems to be most pleased with that one. So I might have, we'll see, because speed isn't. I've got to pretty much average 5 miles an hour, which of course is fine for a few hours, but after a day and a night, that gets much, much harder.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, Damian. I think lots of people will be following the dots across the screen. I didn't realise that could be a hobby until quite recently. So I just wanted to ask you, because I know you're Devon-based originally. You're from Devon, aren't you?
Well, kind of. We just moved around a lot when I was young, basically. And I was actually born in the Forest of Dean, but we'd moved by the time I was 6 months, so no memories of there. But we did live on Dartmoor, just up from Oakhampton.
Oh, from Oakhampton?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
When I was about between the ages of about 4 and 5, maybe even to 6, I think.
Right.
And I've got very, very happy memories of, just weekends out on the moor all the time. It was, and rivers and trees and mossy, damp, wet places. But just beautiful up there.
What's your favourite part of Dartmoor then? Do you remember?
Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to forget the name now. Is it called Wizen Wood? Straight from Middle Earth. It is straight
from Middle Earth. From a distance, it looks like a hologram, doesn't it? It's sort of a dwarf oak woodland, and if you go there in the summer, and you have to tread very gently and gingerly because you might step on an adder.
Okay,
there's lots of them. There's lots of adders. I was going to ask you if you ever do any running on Dartmoor, and if you had any plans to maybe try the Dartmoor Round or something like that.
Not immediate plans, no. But I do. I'm good. I know Patrick Devine Wright a little bit, and I know Joe Meek. Sorry, Joe Meek. Oh, I forget now. Is it Meek or Meeks? There's me just about to say she's a great friend, and I'm going to pronounce better.
She's a friend of mine, and I sometimes get that wrong as well.
It's because I call her Meeksy sometimes, so I think I add an S when there isn't one. I think it's Joe Meek. We were GB teammates, and sometimes she pops up to Bath and we run together. Right. And she had the record, or she still has the women's record, I imagine. So I hear a bit about it from her. I do love that part of the country, and it feels like. Well, I found out even my dad's side of the family are actually from Dartmoor. From Devon. Yeah. What is it my dad claims? He claims that like his granddad was the chief constable of Tavistock or something. He claims. I can't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, we have genuine family heritage and lots of years holidaying on the north coast. I love Linton, Lynmouth as well.
Yeah.
Lots of happy holidays there.
Well, if you're ever down this way and you want a running companion, give me a shout.
Yeah, long overdue. Where are you based again?
Well, I've moved, so I live in a little called the Avon Valley in a little village called Loddiswell now, which is only about 8 miles from Dartmoor. Yeah, I lived on Dartmoor for a few years in a little farmhouse.
Okay.
And, but still a stomping ground though. I have to ask you one more question. Going back to your southwest coast path, I think a lot of people around these parts would be interested to know what was the bit that made you suffer the most.
Well, so many options. I definitely struggled. I went along the bottom first, and then back over the top. I remember really cursing along by Tintagel. It was a hot day, and just the climbs there are pretty monstrous, actually. But I remember visiting Tintagel as a kid. Even on Christmas Day, we went there once, and I was looking forward to going back there and thinking, "Oh wow, well, this will be really nostalgic coast." And it was quite the opposite. I was like, "Oh my goodness." That was tough, but also it was funny. Yeah, right near the end. Oh, what's the town near the end when it suddenly flattens right out?
Minehead, a Poole or Minehead. Where do you start? I can't remember.
I started in Poole. Day before the penultimate day, I'd have to check the map. Actually, it was suddenly really, really flat. After being every day being up and down, up and down, up and down, it was really, really flat. Right. That sort of did me in a bit because I actually had to run, for more than sort of half an hour. But yeah, I remember the Tintagel being tough. Zenor was. Do you say? Am I saying that right? Zena.
Yeah, it sounds right to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I remember that being. I mean, partly it's the weather, or at the time, but it was dark and miserable and atrocious underfoot and really hard going, and I was just very tired. Yeah, that was another tough area.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I've got just one or two quick questions for you. Snot as custard or running shoes that turn into sleeping bags? Which one?
Oh, tough choice.
If you can imagine your nose as a sort of custard dispenser.
That would be quite cool, actually, wouldn't it? I think that'd be more useful. That would be more useful than the sleeping bag. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's probably a good thing you chose that one, because otherwise Innovate would have to get back to the drawing board, wouldn't they? All right, I'm not going to ask you more of those. Damien, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and views and memories, etc. Thoroughly enjoyed your book, and I hope there's a sequel at some point. By the way, the book is called In It for the Long Run, and it's published by Vertebrate Books, as opposed to Vertebra Books, right?
That's how I've been saying it. Yeah.
All right, and pleasure to talk to you, Damien. I don't know if I've ever met you, but it's nice to chat to you anyway.
Thanks so much, and yeah, we've been aware of each other for a while, I believe. So yeah, long overdue, and look forward to finally catching up at some point. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, cheers, Damien. All the best.
Thank you.
The squirrel.
Squirrel is here. How are you doing?
Hi, Damien. I'm all right, thanks. Right, Damien, listen, I'm going to kick off by asking you about the Wainwrights. So a long-standing record of 30 years.
Wainwright Coast to Coast.
Apologies.
Mike Hartley.
Hartley.
Mike Hartley had the record for 30 years.
Mark Hartley, and tell me about it. How was it? Because I know you suffered a lot on it. I mean, you always suffer, but you suffered perhaps visibly anyway, more than usual. Take us through your suffering.
Well, yeah, I think there was some. Whoever was doing some filming at the end had maybe a wonky camera angle, because I looked a bit leany, and there was a very good reason for that. I wasn't at all sure at the time, but I've spoken to several experts, 4 experts now in the areas of sort of hydration, and they all seem unanimous that I foolishly managed to get myself into a state of hyponatremia. And that basically means sort of overhydration / low sodium. And what's, I don't know, some things about this are reassuring, some are alarming. I mean, I've been doing this sort of nearly a decade and never got close to that before, so that's reassuring. I suppose what's alarming is that someone with my experience can still slide into it and not realise. And for those who don't know it, it is potentially fatal. People do die from this. Yeah. So, and the big... I'll tell you a bit about what I was doing. So I had a different attitude to my hydration, and I can see now it was a bit foolish. In the past, I've always drunk to thirst, but I am someone who gets a bit dehydrated, who gets a bit crampy, and that's a separate debate about whether liquid and sodium is involved in cramp or not. The scientists don't agree, but for me, electrolytes do seem to keep cramp at bay. And anyway, I was aiming for up to 500 mils of liquid an hour, and I probably only achieved 400, including food.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like much to most runners, I would think, but it was quite cool. It was well below 10 degrees all the time, I think. And of course, I was going for almost 40 hours, so that's, a day, a night, and a day.
Yeah.
So for me, we're pretty sure that for me, in those conditions, that was a bit too much liquid, even though it doesn't sound like loads. The other thing that happened halfway was I was getting a bit full up or bloated, and now I can't be sure. Bloated with liquid is very different to being full up with food, but I was eating well. I just had a load of chips.
Yeah.
I'm just a bit uncomfortable in the tummy, so I said, let's cut the electrolytes out for now. But I forgot to instruct my crew to bring them back in. And that may well have been a crucial moment as well, in that obviously I would have had higher sodium if I kept taking the electrolytes. Although I wasn't totally without salt, because I was having it in some drinks and food anyway. Yeah. But really the bigger thing was probably overhydrating, just a little bit, but probably consistently over that time. And then you just it's quite strange. It's not like a bonk or, other little things that happen to you where you feel it quite strongly and quite clearly. I think with this, I had no idea it was happening. I just felt confused. I was feeling confused, a lot like being drunk, to be honest. I was asking strange questions like, who are these people and where are they taking me? And I was also losing my balance as well, which is another good sign. Not a good sign, but another clear sign. I was starting to fall over quite a bit, quite slowly and comically.
Yeah.
I think there was a third sign, I can't remember. I didn't have all the signs, that's worth saying. So I didn't. Headache and nausea and vomiting can all be signs, and obviously there's signs of various things as well. So it doesn't mean just because you get a headache you've got this. But I didn't have those. But I was definitely clearly confused.
Yeah. So you can't self-diagnose in that situation, can you?
Not really. Yeah, you've got to. It was good that I had people around me, and I did have a doctor in my crew who was beginning to twig, and she did stop me having liquids towards the end, and I remember the end, whereas I don't remember some of the hours before. So I was coming round a bit. But yeah, both sort of alarming. I mean, I'm embarrassed about it, but I'm happy to I want to sort of share the message, because if it can happen to me, it can happen to a few people. But I would say, yeah, above anything else, drink to thirst. Don't. It seems to have gone out of fashion a bit, the drink to thirst thing, and the idea you could aim for a target of liquid, but that's really, as individuals, we're all very different, and then the temperatures of the day as well come into it. So yeah, drink to thirst, and hopefully most people should be all right. Yeah,
so is that, as you say, it's quite a dangerous situation to be in. I mean, how close were you to the danger zone?
I don't really know. We can't be totally sure without sort of blood tests, just before or just afterwards. But yeah, I had a doctor in my team. She shared the video with some of her professional colleagues. I've had I spoke to a sports dietitian. Had consultation with someone high up in British athletics, just because I want to spread the right message to other people as well. So I'm not really sure, but I was in for several hours and probably, medium, mild level. And I've read up about it afterwards, and, people get to some very scary places. So, I was still functioning. But the other thing was, incredibly slow and weak as well. But then obviously towards the end of these things, you can often be slow and weak as well. But I slowed down massively.
I kind of think it's kind of testament, your approach, that you still, despite this quite dangerous situation you were in, you still not only finished, but you also broke the record. So you must have programmed yourself so intently to finish that you probably ignored all the signs, I guess. But were you surprised? I mean, I don't know. Maybe surprise isn't the best emotion, but were you surprised that you managed to do so well considering your situation, looking back?
Massive credit to the people with me, really. So the pacers I was with, most of them hadn't really met them before, but they did an amazing job of, especially Nikki and Sam did an amazing job of sort of keeping me going, almost bullying me, in a good way, to keep my pace up, because I'd basically built a buffer of about 2.5 hours on Mike Hartley's record. So I had a nice buffer there, but that almost all evaporated, and I only broke the record by 18 minutes in the end. So they were getting quite like, hold on, this is getting close. But to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing and didn't really care. So it wasn't down to my mental strength. I think I was just like a drunk. I was just going, I was in this way. Okay, then I just go over a bit here and stuff like that. So big credit to the team around me. But yeah, I think I was a bit of an alarming state by the end. But I was starting to come around then already, and by the next day, normal tiredness and stuff, but I was fairly normal-ish. But yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. Did you manage to enjoy any of it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, it was wonderful, most of it. And again, like when I was in that state, there wasn't much great discomfort or anything. It was just confusion and weakness and being slow. It wasn't a great amount of pain or anything. But yeah, it started off very well, and as these things do, and the whole Lake District was wonderful. Really nice weather. It was cool and mostly sunny. And yeah, the first day went very well. And the night time, of course, it started to get a bit more difficult. But that was generally all right. I mean, I was getting a bit, you start to get a bit sulky and a bit morose, or I do anyway. And then even the morning of that second day, it was getting a bit wet. The forecast was worse than anticipated, but yeah, and then I just started getting confused, really. But no, all good. Live to fight another day.
Yeah, exactly. Well done. I mean, I wasn't able to follow it because I was away on holiday, but I probably would have otherwise. Have you got any other plans, Damon, or was that just a bit, do you just want to have a bit of a break from FKTs for now?
Well, I've got a place at UTMB. It's a bit uncertain, isn't it, with travelling abroad at the moment. I think they will put a race on. Whether I can get there or not, I guess I'll know nearer the time. And if that doesn't happen, I've got one or two other options which I'm thinking about. But yeah, no, it hasn't put me off at all. No, I'm very, very keen to do more. It's just, I mean, ultimately they're just great adventures with good friends, really. So yeah, well, I'm all for that.
Obviously, UTMB coming up, and there's been a lot of controversy about the so-called power grab of Ironman. And what are your views on that, and how it might affect the ethos of the UTMB?
I guess my overall view is we don't really know what it means. We'll see what happens over the next couple of years. With UTMB itself, I've spoken to someone senior there about it, and a race director in the UK just to get who's involved, just to get their impressions. I think UTMB, I doubt it will change much at all, because that would be a mistake probably. You know, they've built an event, a product that's, you know, the most popular trail race in the world, and I'm pretty certain. So, and they themselves said, you know, it's not going to have Ironman branding. They have no sort of desire to you know, hike the prices or anything. So it doesn't make sense for them to change that event much. But really, it's a whole series of events, and Ironman already owns 3 of the big international races, the big international trail ultras. So I think, yeah, they had the option really of are we going to be a series of races against the Ironman races, or are we going to be the Ironman trail races, or are we going to team up with them and form a big sort of league or series? And they decided that was better. And I think things like UTMB doesn't really have much of a sort of footing in America, so I think they're going to let Ironman sort of sort that side of things out. Yeah, I mean, I can see why trail runners are a bit troubled, maybe. Just the idea that, I mean, I've never done a triathlon; it doesn't really appeal. But it's a very different world to trail running, and I think I can understand why people are a bit worried. But I think people at UTMB are very aware that trail running is very different. The whole what I was worried about was maybe the environmental aspects of does the new system make it, you know, more difficult for UK runners to qualify, and would it, you know, necessitate or encourage more flights? And those 2 things would trouble me. And I don't know, they say the right things, but I guess again time will tell, because now. Well, you don't need to get sort of 12 or 14 points or whatever it was now. You only need 1 stone to get in the ballot. Yeah. But you can get a lot more stones. So if you've only got 1 stone, that doesn't give you a lot of chance. It works a lot like the Western States Lottery. Right. And there's only 1, I think next year anyway, there'll only be 1 race in the UK where you can get those stones, as far as I can tell. Yeah. You know, please go and check yourselves, because things are being added all the time, and I might not be on top of what's happened latest.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, so at the moment there's only 1 race in the UK, so there would be some congestion at domestic level, I think, to get into the ballot. But I guess, yeah, time will say. They're going to open more races, and time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you were saying to me last time that the way they delegate the races is according to density per capita or per country.
Yeah, they're very aware that the UK, for example, is, I think, the 3rd or 4th most sort of populous. The 3rd or 4th amount of people come from UK to do UTMB, so that they bear that in mind, and they want to have UK races. I did hear a rumor that they'd have up to 4 as soon as they could, but that's just a rumor. So it, they're not going to plant loads of races in Patagonia and make us fly over there, but obviously if you do fly to possibly Europe, or not that you have to fly to Europe, but or at least travel to Europe and do some of the other races like Val d'Aran, for example, which is gaining popularity, you would get more stones. But then most people might do, a couple of races abroad in a year, so it doesn't necessarily change a lot. But I guess, yeah, time will tell, I suppose. But I hope it doesn't mean we all end up in a situation where we feel we want to fly more, have to fly more. But
yeah. So whilst we're on that subject, Darren, I'm sure you get asked this a lot. I mean, you have been on record as saying that about you comparing running to activism. Can you explain what the comparison is and why therefore you've chosen to become something of an activist in recent times?
Yeah, the comparison is I do both of them quite badly. Or mess them up quite a bit. Yeah, I've just it's such a huge subject, and I feel very passionate about it. And at the same time, there are so many areas to it that I'm not by no means an expert. I'm reading all the books I can. I'm trying to understand it. But yeah, like a lot of people who for example, are in Extinction Rebellion and groups like that, we're very alarmed that scientists say we need to reduce global emissions this decade by 45%. And we're no way near even getting the sort of ideas in place to do that. Obviously, COP is coming up in November in Glasgow, which hopefully will be, the big moment that we all need. Although I don't know, people who have thoughts about our current government might not have as much hope. So it feels like it's come down to people to make enough noise about it to hopefully bully and pressure them into making the right decisions. I guess in terms of I don't do a lot. I just retweet Guardian stories on Twitter. But I suppose there's a concept of there's the personal footprint, and then there's the sort of the stuff that government and corporations can do. I would say to people, try and get involved in the political stuff. Write to your MP, get involved with Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion. To me, that's more important than trying to cut your own personal footprint, which is the idea of a personal footprint comes from BP initially. You can read about that in Michael Mann's books. But at the same time, I have looked at that because I was just curious. I was just interested. So I worked with a company called Our Carbon, and it was clear that I was flying more than was reasonable. So we've all cut down lately, but I decided to fly a lot less, and I've gone vegan. And then the other thing for most people, it's your energy for your home, your travel, and then your diet. And so energy for your home is actually really easy to switch. You can switch online to a renewable energy supplier such as Bulb or Ecotricity, and that's sort of 25% of your emissions improve just like that for most people. Diet, I think we all know, it has to be less meat and dairy overall, and travel's a bit trickier. Things need to be electrified, or again, it's a huge complex area. That's the simplistic view, is things need to turn electric, and that's happening too slowly really. But yeah, that's a good amount of waffle.
No, it's interesting. I mean, you're in a difficult position in a way, because involuntarily you become a spokesman, whether you like it or not, because by virtue of being quite successful. And so you're going to get people picking holes in your arguments all the time, aren't you? So especially, let's face it, if you're an ambassador for a brand, which you are, you have to tweet about things, and there's going to be people out there who are tweeting furiously back. I mean, I get it for my relatively low-key company, which happens to have the name Wild before it, which for some reason sends some people into complete apoplexy and annoyance. As if I'm trying to piously ascribe a value that I've just invented myself. But it's bizarre. I mean, I'm going to ask you actually, Damian, what is your definition of wild? Because everybody seems to have a different definition, and I don't think anybody owns it, to be honest.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, because I was just chatting to someone earlier on a podcast about running the Cape Wrath Trail up in Scotland, and my line is kind of that it's as wild as it gets in the UK, but that Scottish landscape isn't wild. It should have loads more trees on it. It should have wolves and bears in it. It's not sort of authentically wild as it used to be. And you could comfortably say that there's nowhere wild in the UK. But then someone else might say, go and look in a hedgerow, and you'll find I suppose insects and mini beasts, and there'll be a wild little place there. I suppose you might say. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. That's really tough. Wild, I suppose it is subjective to a person. You can find wilderness in unexpected places, and you can find that places you expect to be wild aren't really, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think wildish really cuts mustard, does it?
Wildish, no, it's a tricky one. Yeah. But yeah, just to go back to you rightly point out a sort of contradiction of mine. I've been careful to really change my behaviour when it comes to sort of promoting brands, and I've chatted to Innovate a lot to various people there, and I feel really reassured that they care about the right things and they're going in the right directions. But at the same time, both of us are going to make mistakes. We're not going to get it perfectly right. And I should add, the clothing industry as a whole is worse than aviation. Globally, it is worse for the planet than aviation. But then it's one of those things where another great message that comes from Rerun Clothing is kind of, we're probably all over-consuming. We're buying too many things that we don't need, and that obviously isn't helping the whole situation. So it's one of those things, again, where it's partly with the consumer and partly with the brand. And
Yeah, I also feel hopefully I can be some value by being inside. I don't know how much influence I've had, but they know I care about those things, and like I say, we've had good conversations. They're going in the right direction. But also, I think we have to be hypocrites, and we have to be imperfect activists, because otherwise nothing will happen. Because, as Jonathan Pye said, we're either a hypocrite or an arsehole, because there's embodied emissions in our clothes, in our food, in practically everything we do. What we're doing now is very likely causing some emissions, very low level, but we almost can't move for emissions, and we didn't necessarily vote for all of that or know about it, So if we wait till we're emitting absolutely nothing, it'll be too, before speaking up, it's too late. So I'll happily have my hand up in the air and say I'm a hypocrite, but I do care, and I'm trying to do the right things, I suppose. And one of them might just be waffling on podcasts about it, but hopefully at least that keeps it, I don't know, in people's minds and on the agenda. Hopefully. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'm perfectly happy to be an imperfect activist.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Damian, for that. You're very welcome to waffle on this podcast. I think I'm going to ask you, this might seem quite trivial to you, but to some people, apparently it's not. Running poles, now sometimes you use them, sometimes you don't. When would you use them, and what advantage does it incur? I'm only asking for the sort of people who have never used them but considering using them.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, if you go to Europe, they're a lot more popular. They're not even really a question. It just seems in parts of the UK there's some, especially if you go to the Lake District, I think they call them cheat sticks, which is all good fun. So I would tend to use them for, in an ultramarathon like UTMB, where there's huge, long climbs. I feel really sure that they really help with both propulsion, but also with your breathing, in that they're much more likely to keep you upright. And your diaphragm is actually, where you're doing a lot of your breathing, or should be, is quite low, actually. So if you're sort of bending over, hands on your thighs, you're kind of restricting your breathing a bit. So there's something there. And then also, if you're upright, in theory, you're stressing your muscles less and using more of your sort of skeletal sort of structure and fascia instead. So there's at least 3 reasons there. And then I would say fourth, even if you're not necessarily quicker, but you think it's helping, and you feel positive going up a long climb that, say, UTMB, might be an hour, then that's good too. So I feel like there's 3 or 4 strong reasons. So I would use them for long climbs, really, but then I would almost always put them away for flats and descents, where I think they're counterproductive.
Are there any long climbs in the UK that you'd use them on, or do you not tend to use them in the UK?
Yeah, I'm a bit mixed on. So when I've run the Paddy Buckley round, I haven't tended to get them out, but I was with Kim Collison when he broke the record earlier this year, and he was using them to great effect. So I probably would. I used to use them at UTMB because it was mostly good, strong, good sort of hard trail, whereas our fell running rounds are often a lot more mixed terrain and a bit rocky and rough, and whether you necessarily get into that rhythm. But I still think they're pretty useful, actually. And the only real reservation, I suppose, is if they're adding, significantly adding to erosion. But I kind of think that's up to a national park in a way to monitor and police. I think in some places in America that's a discussion, but I don't really see it on say the Paddy Buckley round. I don't really see it. Obviously, places like Snowdon have a lot of people going up, but that's as it should be. So I think they're a great help on long climbs, essentially.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. Thanks. I was going to ask you some more questions about your recovery. So for something like the Wainwrights, I don't know how long it takes you to recover from something like that. Probably not very long. But what do you do to recover? Do you just have a few days off completely and then sort of think, right, I'm now going to tuck into a good bacon sandwich, which I wouldn't normally eat, and that sort of thing?
The truth is, I don't really know. I don't really know when I'm recovered. So because you almost get the external stuff and then the internal stuff. So the external stuff I think is more muscles and tendons and maybe a little bit of foot problems or whatever. And usually that's all right after about a week. I nearly always don't run for a week or maybe a little bit more, and then it's almost kind of maybe a little bit of cross training, a little bit of cycling, and then and hiking, and then a run, and just see how that is. But super easy. And then you've got the internal stuff, which is, essentially how fatigued, how knackered are you? And that's much harder to determine and monitor, and is more dangerous in the long run. So I don't push it. You have those first easy runs and just see how that feels. And I guess sometimes you surprise yourself, but sometimes you don't feel so good. And I think it's best not to force it, and just, sleep is a huge thing. But if I'm honest, I don't help myself because a lot of the year I don't drink, and then after something like this, I do allow myself some red wine, and that does sometimes get out of hand. So, and then of course that's interrupting my sleep, so it's slowing down my recovery. But I kind of need that blowout as well, because before something like this, I'm very focused for 2 or 3 months. Putting a lot into it. It's not just the training, but the sort of the logistics and the planning, and there's a lot to it. So I almost need a couple of weeks of just kicking back. And as luck would have it, the European Championships is on at the moment as well. So I'm not drinking every night or anything, but I am relaxing and not really worrying about it, and just enjoying the football.
Yeah, you're going to be there on Friday night then?
Yes, I'll be watching in a local pub. I'm more of a club fan than an international fan, but I'm still excited. I'm enjoying some of the games, and I guess this will probably come out after Friday. But yeah, England, Scotland on Friday. My neighbours, in fact, my neighbour is Scottish. I've got my window open as I talk, so be careful what I say in case they beat us.
Yeah. So listen, David, I want to ask you also, because something that occurred to me reading your autobiography, which I think I mentioned I enjoyed a lot, was you talk very briefly, but I don't think it's given enough status in a way. Is your stand-up desk, and the fact that you stand up. How often do you stand up, and how important is it? I mean, what sort of percentage does that play, would you say, in your overall sort of success?
Yeah, you've caught me out there, because I am sitting down at the moment. but that is one of the things actually I can judge in my recovery. Actually, is a few days afterwards you might try and stand up all day at your desk, and actually it's just not happening. So don't fight it. Just sit down for a bit. And actually, a good recovery measure was also this time was like I could play about a week after the run. I could play tag with my children, but I couldn't catch them. So that was quite a good. Maybe we'll play again later. I feel like I could catch them now, so we'll see. But I've used a standing desk for a year or so. I feel like quite a few people have been using them for longer. Partly on Shane Benz's recommendation. My physio also thought it was a good idea. And after a while, it just feels totally normal. And I think it just keeps you a bit more active, keeps you moving. I think for most people, it takes a transition spell where you might still have that old chair, and you might still sit down a bit during the day, because you don't want to be leaning too badly like I was at the end of my recent run, or leaning all day at the desk isn't necessarily that brilliant. But yeah, if you just check your posture every now and then, I feel pretty sure it's helpful. I mean, yeah, Shane Benzie has this idea that you're not going to, if you've got bad posture during the day, you're not going to suddenly snap into fantastic running form when you go running, because you'll still have those habits and those quirks in your body. So I guess I was just trying to I've got classic kind of hunched shoulders, of years at a desk. But I find if I've got, my standing desk nicely positioned, then I'm not necessarily hunching my shoulders, and hopefully I'm getting stronger posture that way. And after a while it just feels right and normal, to be honest. You almost don't want to sit down, so it's I'd recommend it.
Righty, okay, thank you for that. I was going to ask you a question related to your age. I hope you don't mind. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, because I think people.
I'm 45. I don't mind.
Yeah. What is one thing that you notice that you can't do now that you could do 10 years ago, and what is one thing that you're better at now than you were 10 years ago?
Oh, that's a good question. I do find sleep is even more valuable. I feel like when I was getting into running, I could kind of get up at 5, go for an hour or two's run. I don't know, come back, look after the kids, go to work all day, come back, do some more work. Go to bed at 11 or 12, up at 5. That wasn't every day, but I could do that for a few days without it really bothering me. And now I just can't. So I do need my sleep. And I guess the other thing, and sometimes recovery is taking a bit longer, I'll be honest. That's not scientific, that's just a feeling. And sometimes after a really good quality running, a really good quality workout, the next day I feel it a bit, whereas before I don't think I did. It was always fine the next day. And I've chatted to some other athletes of a similar age, actually, and that does seem to be fairly common. Like, you might still hit the same speeds, but the next day you feel it a bit more. I mean, there are various things you can do. Obviously, things like standing desk, not much alcohol, lots of sleep. Strength training as well is seen as there is some studies showing sort of older athletes, you tend to get a bit more muscle wastage, so it's worth doing strength training, which should help your running economy as well. Things I guess you'd hope with a bit of experience, you'd hope you'd be able to hydrate properly, wouldn't you? But some of us can't. But I suppose pacing in a race, and also when the race isn't going or a challenge isn't going that well, I think I'm much more able to remind myself, actually nearly every race and challenge has had a moment of crisis where you think, oh, it's all going wrong, and it really doesn't, it doesn't necessarily turn out that way. So it's much easier to put things in perspective, I think, in a race, and therefore not give in to a moment of sort of doubt or a mini crisis, I think.
Okay, good advice. Thank you. So, Damian, one more question I'm going to ask you. I think it was related to your writing career, I suppose. It's probably going to outlive your running career, I imagine. Have you got any books in the pipeline? Or you're not allowed to talk about them?
Yeah, no, I do have a follow-up, which again is with the same publishers, Vertebrate Publishing. They were really keen for me to do something on, I suppose, sustainability and running. So I started to look at exactly what we were discussing, really, of running equipment, running events, just anything. It's not going to be a guide as such, but there'll be plenty of pointers in there, I think. But yeah, more of a sort of more of a, I suppose, a personal journey into how can we be more sustainable as runners? How can I be more sustainable? Where's all this going? So looking at that. So maybe not as much sort of flatulence and vomiting and stuff as the other book, but maybe a bit more serious. But hopefully I'll keep it. Hopefully it'll be relatively readable. But a bit more serious in nature. It just feels like that sort of thing is needed. Really.
Yeah, with a bit of tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be.
Bad jokes, you mean? Bad puns, yeah.
Yeah, bad jokes. We need those. Cool. All right, Damian. Well, thank you very much for the time, and I wish you all the best. And I'll hopefully bump into you sometime.
Yeah, long overdue. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And take care and happy running.
Happy running.
Cheers, mate.